Okay, Al asked me to talk to you about the KHTS bus trip to Sacramento. It was their 6th annual trip. It was March 22nd and 21st of this year. It was a Monday and Tuesday. The trip is sponsored by KHTS AM20, your hometown station. Assembly members Smythe, AT&T, Facey Medical Group, and Castaic Lake Water Agency. Trips began 6 years ago as a result of a conversation between Assemblyman Keith Richmond, and Carl Goldman, who's the co-owner of the radio station. In April, or the spring of 2005, I believe it was April, there was a walk for arthritis at Bridgeport, and KHTS was covering it, and Goldman and Richmond were having a conversation. And how many of you remember the Burma Shave commercials? And the Burma Shave highway signs? Okay, well, Goldman saw the people walking around the park, and he thought it might be a nice idea to put up signs like they did at the Burma Shave highway signs, and just put it on the bar, I'll get it, and the signs, and what they would do is have the names of different cities between Santa Clarita and Sacramento. Richmond picked up on that and said, I would really like to have people come from Santa Clarita to Sacramento to see how functional government is. They could see it firsthand. He said, I would sponsor a bus trip to do that. And he did. And Goldman and Smythe and the other sponsors have picked up on that ever since, hence the 6 trips. What do we do when we get there? Well, let me backtrack for a minute. There was about 75 people from Santa Clarita that went. Some of us like to consider ourselves community leaders. Some of us, like myself, are just curious to see what goes on there. Some of the people that went were Fred Arnold, and Al mentioned the parade route of the fallen soldier last month to his gravesite, Acosta. Fred Arnold's one of the people that organizes that, and has organized them in the past, so you have an idea of who he is. He was there. Kathy Colley, Ed's wife, who's on the Newhall County Water Agency. Tim Davis, who runs the homeless shelter here in town. Bruce and Gloria Fortines, both are community leaders. Bruce is on the College of the Canyons Board of Trustees. Gloria is on the Hart School Board. Anna Sanchez from Southern California Edison. Bill Kennedy, who's one of our planning commissioners. John Lutz from the CHP, he's their public information officer. He was along. Victor Lindenheim, and you may not be familiar with that name, but Victor Lindenheim is the man that's responsible for this Golden State Gateway Coalition. It has to do with all the construction that you see along the 14 and the 5 freeway interchange and the truck route, all that construction that's going on there. You're familiar with that? And we're going to ask Victor to come and make a presentation here at the Canyon Country Advisory Committee meeting in one of the upcoming months. As well as, for that matter, Carl Goldman from KHTS talked to us about the radio station, what they've done and what they do, what's going on with him. The mayor, Marcia McLean, was there as well. And I must say, on her behalf, she asked some really hard questions we'll get to in a minute when we talked with the different legislators. Joe Messina was there. Mike Murphy, who's the City of Santa Clarita's government liaison, he was there. Gil Pinkster from Hart School Board, Paul Strickland, Dr. Van Hook from College of the Canyons. She was along as well as Scott Wilk, who's also on the Board of Trustees for College of the Canyons. There are many others, but there were people that are involved in medical care, people that are involved in education, people that are involved in water, people that are involved in nonprofits. What was that? Yeah, not so much. There were just 2 of us. So anyway, that's the people that went along. Of course, what really needs to be said is all the hard work that Smythe and his people put into it, Goldman and his people, like Carol Rock, Sharon Bronson, names that you hear if you listen to the radio station. They do just a great job, and also Carl's wife, Jerry. About the trip itself, because that on Monday the 21st it had snowed, the Grapevine was closed, and we ended up going the 126 to the 101 to the 46 and back around. And by the time we got to Sacramento, the rear ends were about the same shape as the chairs we were sitting in, so that was fun. And so generally what we do is when we get there in the afternoon, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we go right over to the Capitol and start meeting with different legislators. And those are either assembly members or senators, state senators. Because of the trip was so long, we didn't get to do that. So that evening we went to the dinner that they always have. And our keynote speaker that night was the Honorable John Perez, who's a Democrat, but he's the speaker. They call him the Assembly Speaker. If he would be the equal, not in stature, but he would be like the Speaker of the House in the U.S. Congress. Okay, so he's the Speaker of the Assembly for the state of California. And, you know, like everybody else, he made it very clear that they enjoy working with Assembly Member Smythe, who represents us, how easy it is to work with him, and how they get things accomplished. By and large, what he talked about were the difficulties in establishing a budget. And I've got to tell you that was just about what everybody wanted to talk about, were the problems with the budget. From his perspective, what I remember are the limitations that they're experiencing about establishing the budget, with the concerns, limitations, and politics of the day, as well as working with the governor's plans and expectations. And some of those things are like the 2/3 vote, the problems that they're going to have, the cuts in education, cuts in health care, and what was it? Oh, and also there's some discussion there, a lot of discussion evidently, of the governor putting any changes he wants to make up to a vote so the citizens can decide. There was discussion about that as well. And also he talked about the town of Bell, or the city of Bell, and the issues there. And that's not the only city that's having issues, but we're all familiar with that. He was very, very appreciative and complimentary of all of us for going up there on the bus and taking part. So then that's what we did that evening, and that's what he talked about. And bear in mind, as the Assembly Speaker is a Democrat, the Democrats have their majority in the Assembly. So he was speaking from a position of power. And on Tuesday, we had several representatives and government workers that we spoke with. And what we do, they take you over to the state capitol, and you meet in their hearing rooms. In essence, that's what they are, is hearing rooms. And so, you know, it's kind of like going to a theater, and you sit in the chairs, and they talk to you, and you get to ask them questions, whatever you want to talk about. Some of the people spent some time lobbying different senators and assembly people away from the meeting rooms, met with them there in offices and things like that if they had special issues. And it's a real good chance for people to be able to do that, where you get to sit down face to face and talk to somebody and really tell them what your concerns are. And as a result, they have to answer you face to face too. So if you ever get a chance, you might want to consider going to do it. There was an assemblyman by the name of Jim Beal, and he talked about mental health issues and the concerns that he has as an advocate for people with mental health, and he has been that for many years, of what the budget cuts are going to mean for that area and those people. We had Assemblyman Fuentes from the Sylmar area, and he talked about the physical outlook of the state and how it's going to affect us. And it was important to me to listen to him because, of course, he's local. He's in the northern part of the San Fernando Valley, just over the hill from us. But if you've been watching the paper and listening, what's it called? Redistricting, yes, thank you very much. You know, we may get redistricting involving the northern part of the San Fernando Valley. We may become part of that. It all depends on what the census tells and what they decide to do. So, and it's important for us, I believe, to have an assemblyman or an assembly member, I should say, that represents us and thinks about us and not necessarily the San Fernando Valley and their issues there. Okay, the people that we have now, I think he has a bit of the San Fernando Valley, but not much, if I'm not mistaken, and mostly our area in Palmdale, Lancaster. But we need to have somebody, I think, that's concerned about what we do. So he talked about that himself, and then we had a lady come talk to Assemblywoman Connie Conway, and she is the Assembly Minority Leader, so she's a Republican. Okay, and she talked to us about her concerns and her issues that she has as the minority leader, being the minority leader and the Republicans being the minority, and working with the Democrats and the problems that brings, as well as working with the governor. And again, it was all about the budget. And some of the issues that she has, she's from San Bernardino area, so she has the biggest assembly district in the state, and it's places like Inyo County, Tulare, I think, was part of it, San Bernardino County. So she has a big area. Not a lot of people, but a lot of area. And then interesting to me was Assemblyman Jared Huffman, who is from the Bay Area, not Oakland. I'll think of it in a minute. But at any rate, he's real knowledgeable of water issues. And so the question was asked about the chloride issue that we have here in Santa Clarita. And his answer was, I got to tell you, we're aware that you have a chloride issue in Santa Clarita. But we also have a budget issue for the entire state. Okay? So he was very honest with us, very forthright. And he also told us, he said, look, you need to understand something. We're aware of that problem there, but there's other problems too and other concerns. And one of the concerns was, he said, I got to tell you, one of the things we're looking at is it's snowed in the mountains, and now it's going to be sunny, and it's also going to be rainy, and that's going to cause the snow to melt. Our reservoirs are full, our dams are full, our rivers are full, and the dikes are full, and we're just concerned that some of those dikes or levees might give way. So that's a real big concern that they have there, and they're not doing anything to fix it. Okay? So that's what he told us. That, in a nutshell, is pretty much what we talked about. There was one man there from the League of California Cities. His name is Dan Carrick, and he's the legislative director. He talked about enterprise zones, and he also talked about high-speed rail. And again, Mayor McLean went out of her way to ask hard questions of him, and he gave good answers, because he's not a politician. He represents the League of California Cities. So he gave some direct answers as far as talking about the high-speed rail. You can see me, we can talk about that. I have some personal feelings about that. But and the other thing that of note that happened there, the Canyon Country Optimist Club sponsored 2 high school students from Canyon High to go on the bus trip with us so that they too could go up and meet the legislators and see government at work firsthand. And they were very impressed. They had a good time. Some of the topics were enterprise zones, transportation, education, the budget cuts and the impact of those budget cuts on education. And it's not just what's it going to do to the schools, the school districts, and what are they going to be able to afford, not afford. But they also talked about the junior colleges and the state college system, the state university system. You see all the protests that are going on just in this last week about those problems and those concerns. Transportation, I talked to you about that. Mental health services. And when they talked about state budget cuts and what's going to happen with that, one thing that I found lacking was that they did not have a plan or anything they could offer us to tell us what does the future look like physically when these cuts come, other than to say they were going to be ugly. But they didn't want to tell us what can you expect as a result. They didn't want to say that. None of them wanted to say it. So in a nutshell, that's what we did. Talked to those people. We spent some time with them. People had good questions. Any questions I can answer for you? Berta. What I took away, and I'm going to be very candid with you, I came away a little bit depressed in that we know that there's going to be cuts, but they wouldn't tell us what to expect as a result of them. And that bothered me, and it still does, because if you're telling us that there's going to be cuts and we have to deal with that, but what can we expect as a result of it, at least from their perspective? And we didn't get that. We didn't get that from the Speaker of the House. We didn't get it from the minority speaker. We didn't get it from any of the legislators that we spoke with. Nor did we get it from the man from the California League of Cities. We didn't get it from him either. Okay, that was my take on the whole thing, and it was mostly about the budget. That's what I left with. Okay, anything else? All right, thanks.